So here we are for July's episode of Grown As Women, season 2. Can you believe that? Like, we are doing this thing, Grown As Women. Dr. Plummer and her best friends, who are all wonderful, beautiful, dynamic women doing their own things. This month is July, and historically in the US, and presently too, we are talking about Independence Day, the 4th of July. So we go out and we get our flags and we do all the things, but we don't really get deep in the conversations around what it means to be free, right? Like some people take that for granted. As Black women, that's not our experience. We can't always take freedom for granted. So in this particular episode, we're talking about what it means to be free. Free at work, free in our relationships, free in our identity, free in who we naturally are. And because we're grown as women, we're going to talk about that sexual freedom too, right? So make sure you listen in, you have fun with us, you think deeply about the conversations, and you share it with other people as well, right? Like we have this conversation all the time because we're best friends and we're talking every day. But we hope that these conversations get you to think and to share that information with others. And you guys think it's a community just the same. That's how we make room. That's how we grow. That's how we have space. That's how we show up in our authentic selves. So come join us for this July's episode of Grown As Women and Freedom as Black Women. All right, come on, listen in. What? It is July, y'all. Like, what? This is the middle of the summer, right? Like, so you see us dressed in our summer's finest. We picked out our best little summer outfits. You see these shoulders that we've been working on and these legs that we've been doing. These squat. Well, you can't see the squats, baby, because we've been doing them squats, okay?
Squatting on what?
But we are here for July for Grown As Women. So we're going to do some introductions. We're going to do all the things. And guess what we're talking about? Freedom. But with a Black woman spin on it. Because everybody is talking about the 4th of July and what that looks like and independence. But as Black women, we weren't free in the original Independence Day, but we free now. Or not? Let's talk about it. All right? So let's start with our beautiful Deana. Tell us who you are, baby.
I am Deana Kennedy. Yes, the middle name. You got to get the middle name. And sometimes I feel free.
Sometimes you feel free. Yeah. Oh, we're going to dive into it. Hey, T. Let's go, Nick.
I am Nikki, the double divorcee.
Yes.
I'm going to be consistent on that because I really like it. I'm proud. I wear my scars and stars the same.
Come on, scars and stars
the same because we all have them. Clink, clink, clink.
And free. Do you feel free?
At times.
Yeah.
At times. There's the freedom in walking out in the world and how we gauge that. Freedom in our relationships, freedom sexually, spiritually. There's a lot of different components to what makes you feel free overall.
We're going to go back to D in just a second, but tell us about your summer outfit. Because, I mean, Black women, our styles, it means something to us.
I feel like it's a rayon, cotton, nylon mix. I have no idea what the mix is of the fabric, but it's flowy. We tried this earlier. It's like 25% rayon. I don't know. I'm not saying where it's from, not because I don't want to share with everyone, but because they are not sponsors.
Right.
So if they were sponsors or if they were a Black owned business, I would say where it's from. However, you can always hit up Grown Ass Women under Onyx Therapy Group in their Instagram page and find out, and I will message you directly on where this lovely outfit is from.
And may I also note that your specs are looking spectacular.
Oh, thank you. I am specking.
Spectacular.
Before we hear from Jonai, tell us about your look, D.
Oh, this is the quintessential high-low look. I won't shout out the name of this brand, but if you go to your local Get It All store, they're Bronson J. You'll find this top. My shoes are probably the most expensive thing in my outfit.
Not the Manolo.
Well, these are Manolos, but you gotta have a good shoe.
Yeah,
they're beautiful.
You gotta have the good shoe.
Okay, thank you for sharing your outfits and your names.
It's a high-low for me.
Tell us, Jay.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
I am Jonai. We giving middle names?
If you
If
I
you
love
please,
mine.
I
if you
am
feel free to
Jonai
do
Noel,
on Noel.
and it's Noelle.
Okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
Morse Carr. And I am wearing, I guess we're not giving names, so hit us up and I'll let you know if you like my outfit, okay?
Yes.
I'm comfortable. I'm giving comfort chic, maybe?
Yes.
Femme fatale. Comfy femme
I'm
fatale.
glad it's comfortable.
I
You
love
look
it.
good as
Girl,
shit.
you
I am
look
so
great.
comfortable.
Okay.
You know, I have a little 40 and over weight gain. And so
Pushing
I'm trying
on the
to
cushion.
sit in it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sit in
Okay.
it.
I told you a second ago, I like you a little bit of cushion. You look
Yeah.
good. You know what I'm saying? I like
pad.
it.
It's a better
Hey.
bounce ratio.
Tell us, homie, about the bracelet though. Like, I think last month we talked about Nikki and her ring, and it had a connection to her mom. But like, this bracelet is given.
So I have on this bracelet. It's a little butterfly.
Yeah.
And my mother gave it to me. And
Yeah.
so my mother passed. I may speak about my mother in other terms. And so I speak about my mother, and I might be talking about my stepmother, who's also been in my life for
That's
the
right.
past 31 years, I believe,
Yeah.
since I was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But my biological mother gave me this bracelet. I don't know what year it was,
It's
but I was in
beautiful.
college at some point. She passed when I was 21 or 22, I believe. Yeah, she gave me this bracelet, and I haven't worn it in years.
It's
And I don't know
beautiful.
what made me pick it up this morning.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But LaNail noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll probably sit with it
It's
later
beautiful.
on. So
It's beautiful.
yes, I have this Karen Denise
Yes.
bracelet. That's my mom's
Yeah.
name. So
I'm glad you added her middle name because, you know, Karen.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
I hate that. When that whole
Yeah.
Karen thing came out, I was like, stop. My mother she's light skinned, but she's blackity black, blackity black. Okay.
I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you.
And I love this idea of heirlooms, right? Like jewelry as heirlooms and bags and things like that. And as we talked about in April about money and budgeting and all the things, like being selective of how we spend our money and how that gets passed down to generation. I don't know how much the bracelet costs. It looks like what did Rihanna say at the Met Gala? It's expensive. I feel expensive, baby.
expensive.
It looks expensive, but it's also about the fact that it comes with a story, right? So as Black folks, when we start spending money, good, high, or not high, money on things like making sure that it's of good quality, that it could go from one generation to the next generation, because it's about a story. It's about a connection. And I imagine that every time you wear that bracelet, you think about your mama in a different kind of way. You know what I mean? So come on, rich in love. So, of course, I am Dr. LaNail Plummer. I am the CEO of Onyx Therapy Group. And today I'm wearing one of my favorite colors. I like all shades of pink, right? I think that as a Black woman, it looks good on my skin. I think like Black women should wear like bright colors, and we should do things, and we should stand out, because that's not how we've always been socialized. And, you know, my theme has always been on socialization and awareness and what that feeds into who we are. So I know that my shoulders are good assets for me and my legs are good assets. So I dress for my body type. And I think in season 3, we should talk about dressing for our body types, right? Because sometimes we make mistakes. And it shows up in our pictures on the Instagram and the TikTok. And we had a good message, but it doesn't look good. You know what? Let me not. Okay? I'm not. So anyhow, today we are talking about freedom, right? Y'all ready to dive deep into it? Let me also mention that our 5th member, Dr. Deana K. Malone, is not here with us today. She is dealing with some health issues, and she's decided that she is prioritizing herself. And you might have recognized that when we were recording in June and we're recording in July. And my position on it is take as long as you need to take care of yourself, because in the end, she's going to return with us in August and September and October and November and all the other things. So it's okay to take a break to prioritize what you need to do for yourself, so that you could continue to fulfill your purpose. So shout out to my bestie, Ayana, and we hope that you are feeling well soon. And also Nyan, because we know he listening in the car. And he's
Hey,
like,
Nyan.
I know that voice. Those are my aunties. So let's get into it. So the 4th of July, that's a whole thing, right? Like last month we were in our beautiful African garb and African inspired outfits, and we talked about Juneteenth. And in previous episodes, we talked about what it meant to be Black. Here we are in July, and it is 4th of July, and everybody is putting out like their flags. Shout out to all the flags. We are also veterans in here, so we are very much believe in being, what is the word I'm thinking about? Patriotic, very patriotic and things like that. And also recognizing that when the United States experienced independence, Black people had not experienced independence. And even when Black people experienced independence and freedom, Black women did not experience independence and freedom. And are we free now? You know what I mean? Like, what does this freedom, this concept of freedom look like? So why don't we do a quick round of like, how do you define freedom? Let's come up with an operational definition. Like, as you use the word freedom in this particular episode, what are you meaning? And then for those of you all that are watching and listening, how do you define freedom? What does freedom look like for you? Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it financial? Is it spiritual? Is it relational? Is it all of those things? Are you free if you have some of those things, but not the other things? What is freedom?
Yeah, I have thoughts.
Yeah, let's go.
Which is the point, right, of us being here and talking. So that's a good thing. But there's so many different components of like freedom. So it's the freedom without fear to do something, whether that's the financial freedom of I'm in a financially stable place to not have fear if something goes wrong and I can't manage it. The emotional freedom to whether that's my intimate relationships to love freely, right? Without judgment, being able to be vulnerable, or even just spiritually love, right? Just can I live in my spirituality freely? So it's this fear, no matter which category I put it on, it's to not or be able to go out on the street and walk as a Black woman, to be in my career and to speak up and present and be a dominant voice without reprimand or fear
like dominant
of
voices.
Yeah, well, I like dominant things in general, but it's the freedom to be able to be myself or be able to make decisions without a fear of some sort of consequence in it. And so it's not just freedom as far as like going to jail and your legal rights and the Constitution. It's a whole list of things because Black women are the least protected species.
That's right.
So is it I'm free when I'm with other Black women, I feel there's no fear? Or what if I'm in a population of other races and genders? Am I still going to be as free? Because if something goes down, am I the one like in the movies?
Yeah.
Am I dying first?
All first. Yeah.
So, you know.
So for you, freedom is living life without fear.
It's compartmentalized though.
Okay.
It's broad in that there's that concept of the fear of what could happen or what could go wrong in each of those spaces.
Yeah.
So it's the only commonality I could draw when I think about when do I feel free.
Yeah.
Whether even in sexually, right? Because sex comes up a lot with this group.
With this group, it's with you.
Sharing is caring, ladies.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
But even freedom sexually, we were talking about cleave, whatever it is, queefing. The
We
freedom,
dived in early.
If somebody
We
does
dived in
that,
early.
if somebody does that, you feeling comfortable, and I'm like, ew, no, gross. But you have the space to do that without.
So Nick, if I were to
queef.
qualify,
Sorry.
did I look like Abbott Elementary just now when I looked at the camera?
It was cute. It was.
So it's freedom means without fear. That is qualified in like a hierarchical position. Like in some cases you're okay being afraid, and in some cases you're not, and that also means freedom.
Well, I'm a little bit more on. My risk appetite is a little different.
Okay.
Because that's important, right? Okay. my risk appetite is a little
big
different.
Risk appetite. Yeah.
That might just be your appetite, not your risk. So with my risk appetite, I'm willing to take on those consequences or risks in certain situations, which means that I feel freer.
Okay.
But if my risk appetite is not larger or it's not, broader, then I might be fearful, and then I don't feel as free.
Okay.
In that space. So that would kind of be the quantifier of how much risk am I willing to take?
Yep.
Okay, my whole career is coming through in this
Yep.
conversation.
Okay.
But how much risk am I willing to take
Okay.
on? What can I tolerate?
Got it. So freedom for you is risk and fear and a measurement of all of that. Got it. Okay. So it's qualifiable and quantifiable.
It is.
Got it.
It is.
Perfect. J or D?
Yeah.
Oh, look at the single letters. J,
Yeah.
D.
And am I gonna be in now?
No, you're next.
Or no,
I think I struggle with the freedom aspect of myself.
Okay.
Quite a bit actually. And I think freedom starts with you.
Okay.
If we don't, we take out the slavery and all these other things, the worldly things. I think freedom comes with who you are.
Yeah.
What do you think of yourself? Who are you? What do you stand for?
Yeah.
All those things. So I think once we figure out the person, the me, the Jonai,
Yeah.
who am I? What do I want? What makes me happy? What makes me feel good? What do I have to say?
Yeah.
I think it starts there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can start to establish all these other, freedoms.
Yeah.
How do I show up at work? How do I show up at home? How do I show up with my friends?
But that's your
Yeah.
tolerance
All
and
these
appetite.
That's
Once you
your
know
tolerance.
that.
And it's also about inhibitions, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
So, but what I hear you saying is that you are the one who will control your own freedom.
Correct. And I think
Okay.
once
Which is powerful as a Black person, right? Because there was a point in our society where we had no control over anything, right? And and we're not talking about something that's like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about women's lib being like 50, 60 years ago. We're talking about civil rights being like our parents were born in segregation. Our mothers were born without women's liberation. And we're also talking about like Roe versus Wade, and abortion rights, which is still a topic for us right now. Like when I'm looking at my teenage daughter and considering like that she doesn't have complete freedom over her own body in this current culture. You know what I mean? So it's not like we're talking about something that's like old and antiquated and centuries ago. Like this is still affecting us right now. So for you, you're talking about freedom is really starting within. It's like very intrinsic, and the external factors matter a little bit later, but it starts with you.
Especially today, where we do have a bit more worldly freedom than previous years. So now we get the opportunity to sit with ourselves and figure out what it is that that we want. What do we stand for? Who are we? I think my freest moments, some of my freest moments, are with you all.
Yeah.
And so if I were to sit with that and dissect it, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Why am I this free? And what does it mean? And what am I doing? And, how does it make me feel? So,
I think part of it, and we'll get into it maybe later, is that unconditional love and acceptance, right? Like, I think that in our years of friendships, we have seen each other in some lows, and we've seen each other in some highs, and we've seen each other in some middles. And we've seen each other in some lows that we haven't predicted, right? Like you can expect your friends low, but when they go lower and you go lower with them, you're like, oh, this shit is real low, right? And can you bounce back from that? And the bounce back part creates a sense of like community and trust and love, of which you know that you can absolutely 100% be yourself, and people are going to accept you always, and that's pretty powerful in a society that doesn't always accept Black women.
Yeah.
So, come on, Kennedy, Dr. Kennedy.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Come
It's
on.
coming. Oh my God. If y'all can see my office. Anyway. I'm with Jonai. I think first you have to realize who you are and authentically, and what space you want to take up, and in what places and with what beings, what people. Yes, with you all, I'm very free. But there are places where we're not so free, right? There's places where we have to hide a part of our identity, hide a part of who we are. And, you know, I really would like to be free in all of those places, but we recognize the risk, as Nikki said, of being who we are. For instance, in my job today, as it lives.
Not for long.
Not for long. Not for
Depends on
long.
when this airs.
Yeah.
I recognize that I had what I perceived as some setbacks, but it was really God hiding me because I've evolved into this authentically free person where I say what I want to say, when I want to say it to who I want to say it to. And he was like, boo,
Come on, Aries.
I'm going to put you over here because I need to hide you for a second because this environment that you're entering to, the risk is not worth what they say, the beans,
The consequence, the risk and the return.
yeah,
the return
it's
is
not worth it. So I'm gonna hide you for a second. So if you're ever in a situation where you feel like you can't be free, notice where you are.
Yeah.
Notice what the risk is to your future, to the people around you, and just sit with that, like Jay said. But I think once you hit a place of actualization where you have a community where you can be free and share your thoughts, that you should also recognize there are places where you are not safe.
Yeah. That power of protection, right? Like, so if we go back into this idea of being Black women, and I think what I heard you guys say before is that Black women aren't always protected. So in the moments we are protected, we're like, is this suppression? Is this like them putting us off to the side? Like, we don't know how to even be protected because we are not protected. So when God does put us in a place of protection, we're like, what is the purpose here? Are you silencing me or not? We never lean into, oh my God, God is protecting me. We always lean into it's something else, right? Because again, we are not the most protected people. If we historically take it back to the auction block, we the ones first on the auction block, right? Like, and they're measuring us and looking at us and all those things. And I know you guys are always like, here she go, being all blacky black and ancestral
Black,
connections and
Right,
slave
own it,
connections.
living it.
But I'm like, all of that gets passed down. And then when we think about, just quick off to the side, that we are the manifestations of our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers and great-grandmothers because of how that we carry our next generation in our womb, right? Like, we have our generational eggs the moment we are conceived. And so our great-great-grandparents carried us and all of their traumas, and they're on the auction block being judged and being auctioned and being all those things. And then later we come around and we're like, I just want to be free. Like, that was never the experience. That's not in our DNA. Like, we have to fight so hard in order to experience freedom and to define freedom in these unique ways. I think what happens for me is that I fought through my own suppressions and oppressions in my youth, and now I refuse to be anything but free. Like, if I must be free in all elements. Excuse me. And I take the risk with that, to what you're saying. Strategic and calculated, of course. But I'm always like, I'm going to say what I need to say. I'm going to show up how I need to show up. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I'm going to always couch it around protection of God and ancestors. You made me who I am in this body, with this identity, with this voice, with this presence. And I feel like my purpose is to be free and to inspire others to be free. And I think that's what attracts people to me, because I bring out in them this opportunity to be free. My God, if I could just speak, if I could just show up, if I could just take up space. Like, how does Dr. Plummer do it? And I do it with a lot of elements, right? Like, I go to my altar room all the time. But I feel like my purpose is to live a free life consistently. And I will challenge a system, an institution, a person who tries to put me back into any sense of incarceration, whether that's emotional, spiritual, whatever.
I think that's important, a faithfulness to whatever your truth is.
Yes.
So just, you know what I'm saying? And
that's not everybody's truth.
I know.
Let me be clear. Everybody is not supposed to live in the That's not everybody's purpose, not this rotation.
And I want to say that I think it's very admirable, being your friend, your everyday friend, watching, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody thinks they're a friend.
That's
right?
true. That's like a real friend.
No,
That's why I laugh, because
no,
that's
you for real. You for real. I be like,
but you are very faithful to your, to your being, your thoughts and your processes and all these things. I'm very amazed at how you push through life daily. I mean, spiritual community, the girls, all these different things. There's so many times I'm thinking, like, how are you doing all this stuff? Yeah. How are you engaged in so many things?
They feed your being. They're all facets of your being, and the beings of other people. Yeah. And you see and identify those things in other people. And they are the places where we get to be free. Yeah. I get to be free that once upon a time, not so much, but I was a Bible thumper.
Come on. Bible thumper.
I got all the scripture. I got all the things. I'm giving it to you, and I mean it. And I don't get to be that person in all places. I don't get to talk about that at work. Yeah. I don't get to talk about that in certain subsets of friends, because that's not what they believe in. But you purpose to expand those communities in different places because there are different facets of you. Yeah. And that's where we get to be free. Maybe not in totality, but in those different segments across our lives.
You need all of it.
And you need all of it.
Yeah, but part of being free, and I think I'm going to combine something you said, LaNail, and something that you said just from the coaching lens as well, is, and when it talks about the risk in terms of what are you afraid is going to happen, right? Because being able to live in these spaces and live freely means that you have set in what could go wrong. So even in our relationships, right? If it's, I don't want to have a tough conversation, what are you afraid is going to happen? Is it you're going to lose the relationship? But then being, I guess, having the clarity to know if a relationship is lost, then it wasn't meant to be held.
Or it had a reason or a season, right? And I think that's the other thing that we've talked about in previous podcasts, that sometimes people enter into relationships and they think that these are things that are supposed to be a lifetime, but they're supposed to be for a reason or a season. If you have a difficult conversation with somebody and the friendship doesn't last, it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong in having that difficult conversation. It means that that was the closing of that chapter. And now you need to sit back and think about, what was the reason of this relationship? What was the season of this relationship? And I think that's the thing that challenges people, because they have these difficult conversations and it doesn't go as they expected. And subsequently they're like, I'm not going to ever do this again in the future. But that's the wrong lens to look at it from, right? Like, maybe you taught yourself something and they taught themselves something, and then that was just the end of it. And you carry that lived positive experience to the next chapter, you know?
Not only that, but when it's people, what do you do with the person? Do you discard that person? Do they move to a different realm in relationship with you? But what do you do with that human that's on the other side of that relationship? Because it's very easy to say, okay, I'm not going to do this thing in this season. But when you have an entire human who you have a relationship with, like, what do you do with that person?
I wonder if on disc you're an I. You're like, have you
I'm a
ever?
D.
Oh, you are. But you're like, what do you do with the person?
But
I don't
can
like,
it
but the
just
person
be a
gotta figure it out
natural?
too. Yeah.
They do, but in your mind, like, in your mind, you put people in categories real quick.
True.
Well, for me,
True.
I'm the Aries. Real quick and real fast. You live in this box, and that's where I'm going to keep you. But when you've had maybe a closeness of a relationship and now it's drawn, you're a little far apart, like, where do you live? Where do you live on my spectrum of friendship?
And your intentionality to that, right? Like, from a clinical counseling lens, we call that a rift. So there's been a rift in the relationship. How do you repair that? Is it intentional? Is it not? Do you not want to repair it? Do you want to repair it, but you don't have the skills? you don't have the tools. There's a new counseling subset that I absolutely love called friendship counseling. So, people go to counseling for like individual counseling or family counseling or couples counseling, but now there's friendship counseling, and that is especially important. It started by Black people, and it's especially important because Black people in friendships matter different than white people in friendships. Primarily, I'm a nerd out again, right? But primarily because of our connection to slavery, in that we didn't always get to stay with our biological families. So we went to different plantations and we made relationships with family, with other people. That's why a random stranger over time becomes auntie and uncle, and that's your cousin, and there's no blood relation. And in white supremacist society, that's your friend. But in Black society, that's your family member. And so when there is a rift in a friendship, it affects Black people differently because it's not just a friend. This is your community. Shout out to June's episode, right? Like what community means. And the spiritual connection. And so friendship looks different in Black communities than it does in white communities because we rely on each other more than our families at times. When people are like, blood is thicker than water, that is not true for Black people. Sometimes that water is what sustains you, right? Like that water is what keeps refilling you.
Yep.
I keep getting nerdy. My bad, homie.
No, it's okay. But it really speaks to, you were kind of saying that blood is thicker than water, and just speaking to that freedom and that whole kind of likelihood impact, right? When you think about knowing yourself, and it really is kind of, there's therapeutic terms like self-awareness and reflection. But in my world, it's the same thing as like a risk assessment.
Yeah.
True. What could go wrong? What is it that you want to achieve? What could go wrong? What's the likelihood that it could go wrong? And if it does, what's the impact going to be? And then you can prioritize that. And especially for me that has, and we talked about this, Dee, like multiple buckets that I have to manage. And some of them intersect in the sense that they're all mine, but they're separate, and really had to step back and say, okay, how can I prioritize what I need to manage? What's always going to roll to the top first? What's going to be, that can be delegated to somebody else.
But there's a nuance of nerd dissertation. Yes, I'm studying hope and psychological capital. And there is a thought process that the hope in Black people is connected to the community, which means if you don't believe in what I'm doing, then the likelihood that I'm going to continue to do it and that I believe in it is less, because I need the community to say, oh, this is the right path. This is going to support all of us. Going back to slavery and how we were separated. And you could be my cousin and I don't even know it. You know what I mean? We have that communal connection that we must support each other for it to be successful and valued and that we hope for the future. So risk is important, but I truly believe in the Black community. Beyond what the risk is, I need the support of my people.
And that ties into last month, right? As far as our community in dating and the role that our community plays, right? And having that support. Could I really be in a healthy relationship if I don't have the support of my community? If my whole community thinks, sis, this isn't it.
You know what? Part of that is that intersection, though, of being African American, if you will. It's not a term that I like to lean on. And I like the power of Blackness because I feel like that's universal across the diaspora. But if we think about African American, and most Americans are centered on individuality, right? Like this very westernized culture. But as African-based people, we're often centered on community, right? And communal aspects and building in. And so what I hear us talking about is the American in us is talking largely about risk and individual risk, but the African in us is talking about community and what that means. And the intersection of that is where we are right now. We are constantly weighing community and risk, right? What does this look like? What does it look like for me as an individual? What does this look like for me and my community? How does all of this intersect to each other? And what does that mean for freedom? Maybe I'm free as an individual, but not free within the community because my community isn't free, right? But I am free because I have particular privileges or access and things like that. I will eventually talk about this arrest that I had a couple years ago, right? But I remember being in a position, and you guys remember specifically, Jonai rolled up in her car like, what's going on, right? Like, but I had this particular encounter with law enforcement, and there were parts of that I was able to escape because of privilege, because of the American element of privilege. And yet the level of despair and discouragement I experienced was because I knew that my privilege was individual, but my community is not representative consistently of my privilege. Specifically meaning the law enforcement relaxed on, they were wrong, but they relaxed on how they handled some of the situations because I'm a doctor. And I was like, how many doctors are there in the world? How many Black women doctors are there in the world? What about all the other people who are not doctors? Would they have been able to get out of this particular situation? It's those intersections, again, between American individualization and African collectivism, and where we find ourselves as African American people, and not necessarily feeling rooted in our own individual culture, right? Because it doesn't look like we're connected to a particular flag or a particular food set or a particular country and land. What does it mean to be African American? Which is what this conversation is about, because it's the 4th of July and we put out our flags and we wear our cute little things and we go to the cookout at homeboy's house and we do all the things. But like, are we free?
Right.
Like,
if your community is not free, are you free?
right. Right. And Jay-Z said that. He said it in a different way, right? And we're going to be ratchet in a few minutes, right? I know all the audience is like, grown-ass women, we're used to
don't worry. I was prepping it.
Right?
I was prepping to balance the tone and energy.
But Jay-Z said something in one of his lines, but he was talking about it from an economical perspective. He said, I'm not rich if my homies ain't rich, right? Like, you got to put on everybody. Like, from an American's perspective, yes, if Jay-Z got all this money, he's right now listed as the highest paid rapper, but he's a business person, but he's the highest paid rapper. But he's like, if my people ain't in this with me, then what's the point? What's the point of going to a 18-star? I just made that up. I don't know if there's an 18-star restaurant. But what's the point of an 18-star restaurant and your homies can't go with you? You the only one eating in a restaurant. That's no fun, right? Like, everybody needs to come and eat with you. And everybody...
we have to figure out how to teach that, right?
Right,
how do we teach that? How do we... What do we do? Because there's a level of acceptance too. We have to all accept each other and be on board, right? Yeah. And there's so many of us. We're so against us.
Yeah,
it's sickening.
It's sharing of knowledge,
and that each of us have our own purpose and ways to act. Yeah, we be having these conversations all the time in these text messages, right? Like each of us have our own purpose, and some of us are torch bearers. And some of us are, meaning that we clear the path, and some are the ones that open the path for others to follow. Some of us are like the lookout. Some of us are carrying the rear to make sure nobody's hitting us from the side. Okay.
But
all right.
It's about.
I do. I don't know.
From the side.
I do. Okay.
But it's about knowing who you are and where, again, it's self-awareness, where you fit in that puzzle and playing your position.
That's
if you are, you got that.
It's a lot of different positions.
A little hatchet.
And
you
the
clear
machete.
the way. The machete. That's what I wanted to say.
It's called something else, like a
machete.
No, it's
the
called
machete?
I know you're talking
a
about
hatchet.
a hatchet or something.
Anyway,
ratchet.
I was gonna say, if you got the hatchet clearing the way, you can't also look out.
Yes.
Your person on the side needs to play their position and look out so that the community is free.
That's right.
In the African sense of it versus this Western sense. Everybody be secure in what you're supposed to be doing and do that and do that in excellence.
That's right. Go ahead, Nick. And can you also segue us into...
I was absolutely about to do that. No, but there's, the larger sense. But it is important, and I mentioned it earlier, sexual freedom. It is important, especially when we talk about body image and insecurities and knowing yourself. Like, that side position could be a monster if you grab it in the tummy and I'm like, oh, Lord, not just the boobs have shifted, everything shifted. And I'm like, oh, gosh, if I don't feel free and comfortable, especially with the partner that I have, as well as myself, then that could throw off my whole Like, oh, instead of me focusing where I should be focused.
Y'all,
on
this
feeling.
is literally and figuratively. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real,
Sometimes they grab the tummy to stabilize themselves too, though.
and it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your question, Nick? Your question is, okay, moving it from like the historical slavery-based political work kind of thing. What does sexual freedom look like, right?
What does that look like? I mean, does it not tie into self-awareness so that you're comfortable in your skin? Like, I don't look how I did when I was younger, so I have to your phrase, sit in it.
Child, I don't want to look like how
I don't want to look how I don't either, because I like a little pushing and cushion.
Okay.
I think it's your own comfort and then the acceptance. So if you're in a relationship, it's got to be both, right?
Yeah.
The balance.
Yeah.
Hashtag balance.
I think most of it is you. I think I had a guy say to me at one point, have you ever taken off your clothes? And the guy has been like,
oh gosh.
Never again.
Oh, where's my pearl?
Never. It's
Wait,
you.
hold on.
It's you, not them.
Yeah.
The guy asked you if you've ever taken off your own clothes?
No.
Because I was having some insecurity and I was just talking about, well, I got a little fupa, I'm a little bigger. And he was like, have you ever taken off your clothes? And the guy's been like, girl, put them clothes back on. Hell no.
Oh, okay.
It's
Good point.
you.
Yeah.
It is the person and your insecurity about your body or
Let me
how.
tell you, if
Not
I took
ever.
off my
Not
clothes
never.
and somebody told me to put my clothes back on, forget insecurity in that moment. And I am not an Aries, but let me tell you, we fighting, homie, right? We blow to blow, and I don't mean sexually. Like, we going, you know what I mean? Like, tell me to put my clothes back on.
That's a great point, though. It's
Yeah,
usually-
that's
it's
a great
usually you.
point.
It's you. It's
It
you.
absolutely
And people will
is.
get on board with you.
Yes,
if
true,
you
true.
are,
And
if
you're
you are on,
confident.
yeah, but just in general, if you are secure in who you are and what you present, then everybody will get on board.
And they get fun with it, right? Like, side note, y'all know I can't dance for shit, right? Like, my rhythm, everybody, I can't dance, but I love to dance. But when I dance, it just makes everybody excited to dance. They're just like, oh, we're just going to dance with your off-rhythm, non-rhythm
cares,
ass,
right?
right? 'Cause
Nobody cares, yeah.
Because it's all about how you feel. If I'm walking around feeling insecure about dancing, everybody's going to be like, oh, she really can't dance. She can't do it. We don't want to dance with her. But if you're like confident and you're having fun, also meaning your body, right? Like, if you're comfortable in your body, people feeding into that too. They like, that nipple is a little low to the belly button.
Whoa.
But it looks good.
Whoa.
But, is it just me? Well, forget you, Nikki. I don't care.
Whoa.
But the point I'm making is when you feel confident, even in the things that you're not the best at, but you feel good in it, right? Confidence is different from competent. I am not competent in dancing,
Right.
but I am confident in what I look
Facts.
like, and I know it's bad.
Facts.
But when you
Facts. Facts.
Facts and facts.
Facts on facts.
I try, guys.
You're not that bad.
You do.
It's about your energy.
Yeah.
It is. Your energy makes it great.
You guys are making the point. What is the moment that you were the most free in sex?
Without alcohol or any other addition, because that
Okay.
can, when you were uninhibited with any non-you,
I do like that, Nick. Let's talk about that.
because
the most free moment you had,
and then we can go to
without
soundbite
any substance.
or tip of the day. Tip of the day.
Oh, we're moving to tip of the day. Okay. So the freest moment. Tell us a little bit about the circumstances where you were. I don't necessarily want to know about the person, right? Because that factor. Okay. Maybe
No,
it
I'm
was
joking.
characteristics of the person,
Or how they made you feel.
or how you felt,
Or how
in
they-
yourself.
Both. It could be both too.
I was gonna
Both.
say I'm free. I have been freest with another free person.
Okay.
When that person is also free.
Did they say it, or did you feel
You feel it.
something?
Yeah.
Were you looking in each other's eyes?
I don't know.
Is it from the back or the front? How did you look at
I mean,
them?
you can look back at
you
it, or the
feel- You
side.
can feel freedom, whether
Okay.
it's with a sexual partner or with anybody.
Yeah.
You know, you feel you can feel freedom.
Yeah.
So
So you talked about how the person, when trust,
Yeah.
that's
Trust.
it. That's it.
trust,
That's it.
and there is something extremely erotic when you trust a person and you actually can look them in the eyes.
Yes, that's right.
When it is that is a deeper level. I will fake close my eyes like something's happening in a heartbeat if you look me in my eyes and it's not there. So, like, oh God,
this
it's
is
so
an
great.
entire different conversation.
Sorry.
Another.
But you felt free.
So
there we go.
Okay.
So
we just got some new topics today, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
The orgasm.
Yes.
Oh my God,
You're
Nick,
welcome.
if you do not trade, we got
You're
you
so
better
high-fiveable today.
We better
you.
trademark all of this stuff. You better get all of
The
all
orgasm.
of it. I think for me, freedom is somebody accepting me 100% of who I am. Freedom, though, in the bedroom tends to connect to me in terms of like, do you fully accept who I am? Because I know the complications of who I am. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that people perceive me through like a kaleidoscope, right? I know I am a lot of things. I'm extra as hell. Can you accept all of that? Can you accept the nerdiness and the spirituality, a whole altar room, while there is probably marijuana on the altar because my ancestors smoked weed, right? And maybe or not, I do. And can you accept like, these kids, and can you accept a baby father? Can you accept like me striving, but also having like trauma from poverty? Like, can you accept all of this? And when you accept all of my being, then I will give you all of my being. And we will have a purely wonderful spiritual moment. Back in the day when I was hardcore in church, I remember one of the pastors saying, sex is worship. And it is a sacrifice to God. It is saying to
you bedroom is undefiled.
Right. You're right. But the point that I'm making is that everybody has to define freedom sexually in terms of their own position and position's not the right word. Their own perspective in life, right? Like, so for our people who are listening or who are watching, like, what makes you feel free? How do you feel free? What elements are present there? And pay attention to that, right? If it's a person's character that makes you feel inhibited, if it's a person's acceptance of you that makes you feel inhibited, if it's anything natural, then keep leaning into that. If you have to use substance, I mean, we're not people that oppose substance because we like champagne, we drink all the time, we do the things.
And we're going to transition to the tip of the day. Slow walk yourself to what's right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
Stop running to the wrong stuff. We generally know what's wrong.
That's right.
All right. Take your time, figure it out, and run towards the right side of things.
That's right.
So slow walk to your freedom.
Slow walk to your freedom,
Come
D.
on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Slow walk to your
As opposed to
freedom.
running to destruction.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. What they said.
Yeah.
That's it.
What a wonderful episode that we've had here in July, talking about freedom and Black women and what it means you enjoyed this particular episode. We miss our own Ayana K. Malone, Dr. Malone, and we will have this conversation later with her about freedom, specifically sexual freedom, because she's our fun one, extra one.
More than me.
But in addition to that, we hope that you take this episode and you listen to it and you conceptualize it and you contemplate the conversation, right? Like you think about it for yourselves and then you share it with other people as well. And if you happen to be one with a little extra money, we are looking for sponsorship as well. We will make sure that we shout you out and your business and all of the things as well. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Grown Ass Women. And get this, after this one, we only have 2 more episodes of season 3. Or 2.
Season 2.
And season 3, baby, you don't even want to know. We got some ideas worked up right now. And some things that we're going to do, right? So thank you for joining us again for Grown As Women of Onyx Therapy Group, and share it and give us some money too. Smooches.